Sergio Perez, who started in the top 6 here in Monaco for the first time ever, who has led a race in Monaco for the first time ever, who suffered disappointment in Barcelona last time out, and who has rebounded in some style to take his 3rd victory in Formula One. It's Perez in the Principality. He wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
What's up, guys? It is Ricci here, season 2, episode 10 of the F1 podcast. Within hours after the Monaco Grand Prix, which saw Sergio Perez capture his 2nd win of the season, I think. I don't even know. Oh, it's first, actually. Sorry. Thank you, Andrew. And Ferrari just completely dump it. But we'll get into the pod to talk all about that. Here with my 2 amazing co-hosts, Erica and Andrew. How are you guys? Erica, it was so lovely to see you on the weekend.
You too. Andrew, we missed you.
I was celebrating my own birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah,
That is a great song.
Unfortunately, couldn't join this weekend, but I saw the pictures. I saw the games that were being played at Coronation Park, and it looked like a lot of fun.
Honestly, Can-Jan, Spike Ball, and actually one of my friends brought hacky sack.
Nice.
Enough about our birthdays, though. So our favorite race of the year, right?
Oh yeah, this is the track we all love based on our past conversations.
But let's be real here. Today was a lot more fun than it had been in years past.
Much more interesting.
And it could have been a lot more fun if the FIA didn't just absolutely bottle job the first hour of it, but nevertheless.
Yeah, it was rainy start to the race, and obviously that prevented us from really having the race I think people were expecting. But it was definitely interesting. I think it forced a lot of teams to kind of pivot quickly and change their strategies. And what was your take on it, Ricci?
Bro, what's going on with Ferrari?
This guy is so mental. He's just mentally in the blender right now.
It's not been a good couple of weeks to start, but also the fact that very good qualifying for both Charles and Carlos, going 1-2. And then those pit stops. I don't know what was going on. It was just like vintage. It felt like 2020 all over again today. And luckily Charles was able to finish the race for once, but I don't think he is circling Monaco again on the track ever again.
I don't know why Ferrari fans are so upset. He finished the race.
Okay,
that's a big step positive, guys.
it's a step in the right direction.
It's not like your strategy and Maranello couldn't figure out how to properly
Finish him.
Oh geez.
Stay out.
That's Leclerc. They're double stacking down at.
My goodness. But even still, I mean, I think people knowing that he wasn't making errors and had kind of a commanding lead there at the start, we're hoping for a better outcome. And I mean, it was very obvious that Charles was frustrated over the radio as well, kind of asking what the heck was going on. Why have we done this? But he wasn't the only He wasn't the only one that had a bit of a rough weekend. We saw some pretty unfortunate things. I mean, Latifi, what was it on, was it just the formation lap when they were in the safety car before the rolling start and his car just didn't turn and he crashed? And we had Stroll nicking barriers, and we had a very scary moment there where Mick's car just completely split in half. And K-Mag had already retired at that point because of a mechanical issue with a water pump or something like that. So Ferrari were not the only ones that were really struggling to do stuff this weekend.
And I just want to add in there, I don't even think anybody they highlighted that K-Mag went off. It just was oh, and Kevin Magnussen's gone. And it's I don't think there was any highlights of him going into the pit, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I didn't even know. It wasn't until they were showing Mick and talking about, I think, how Albon was in P19 at that point. And I was oh, who's behind Albon? And I saw that he was out, that I realized what was going on. So definitely not something they really drew attention to, but there was so much else happening out in the field with all these tire changes and, a couple interesting moves people were trying to pull in order to pass where they could. I don't know. It was once things got back underway, it was a pretty entertaining race, and I think the first time I've seen a race where they didn't necessarily get to do all the laps because of the time restriction.
I think, yeah, this was the first time I really noticed that because was it Spa last year? They didn't even bother to do any laps, or like it was just like too much of a red flag. So yeah, I was interested in seeing, and we were just, and some drivers in those 30 minutes were just like, either we're gonna hang on or we're gonna try to pit. You saw the frustration. It seemed like Fernando Alonso was a big subject of controversy this week, just playing the whole back of holding, whether it was Hamilton, Bottas, or Vettel. I didn't realize the midfield was going to be this exciting and so far back.
Well, and he created a huge amount of space. It was 30 seconds or 35 seconds to the car in front of him. I think Norris got a free pit stop out of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think he just kind of made it a bit of a troll, keeping Hamilton behind, holding a grudge since 2007 when he got held behind Hamilton at Monaco. But he was just kind of making a mockery of the track, which was pretty funny in that case. And he still, once he opened it up, his 30-second gap, he was then able to finally begin to show the Alpine pace at that point. But it was funny because at one point Hamilton was asking, so how far are we to the pack ahead? And he goes like, and then Bono was like, no, we should be worried about the pack catching up to us. He's like, no, we're 30 seconds ahead of the pack ahead. It was a crazy race. I would love to hear Alonso's comments like over a drink at a bar just to see why he did that, because it was quite interesting to watch.
You don't want to be a fly on the wall in the Ferrari's post race.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. I just don't understand this. How do you? Okay, so you all started on wets, and then it was an opportunity to go to inners, which Gasly did, but he did that quite early on to get the race ahead. But even then, like, Charles was just way ahead on the wets. Like, he was 5 seconds ahead of his teammate. And Carlos said, like, no, I'm not pitting for like inters. I'm gonna wait until we have to pit for dries. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty smart move, change up the strategy. So they bring in Leclerc for inters. Yeah. And then a couple laps later, then they like double stack. I'm like, you automatically just gave up the top. You automatically just gave Leclerc one position behind. You just gave Sainz the race lead because he fended off for team strategy. Mm-hmm. And then they got picked up in the back markers by traffic. Like Latifi didn't get out of the way. So helping Red Bull again, go TC. Because then they double stacked, and then all of a sudden you see Checo in the lead, and like Charles is back to P4. I don't understand why they didn't let him go. Like, what they should have done is let him go another lap, try and let him build the pace so that he can kind of overcut his teammate on the next pit stop. But you made him pit, and then you make him pick again behind his teammate. That's automatically giving him up the race win. And Monaco guys, like, they can't. There's no way to pass. Like, look at the end. The end was like a nose to tail race for 4 of them because Checo's tires, like, he just completely like killed on the graining, and no one could pass.
And keep in mind for those listeners who are just tuning in for the first time, like, this year's car is a new car based off the new regulations that's come, and the car is now significantly much bigger than what it was the 2021 Formula One car was. So it's like, we already talk about how hard it is to pass up Monaco, and then the new weight and the new design of these cars, like, it was impossible.
Yep.
And it kind of now, and especially we'll kind of get into the question section, but if they go ahead with this race again for the next couple of years, or if F1 renews the contract with Monaco, it's like, is this going to be any fair racing? Because like, or is it just going to be you quali hard and then just get right? Oh, sorry.
Cat jumped on my desk here.
I think Erica's cat has declared that that he doesn't want the Formula One to go back to Monaco next year.
It really
has.
Honestly, it has become
it's a farce.
See how you qualify on Saturday, because that's where you're going to be placing on Sunday. I think I took a look at the difference between the grids, the starting grid and the results. I think Bottas was the only one to really jump. I think he jumped 3 spots. Checo jumped 2, but that was based on Ferrari's false strategy. It's never fun when a race is determined by pit stop strategy.
Yeah.
Because like you want them to race and be able to overcome that on the track. But it's impossible to do it here. So it really is, the race is won and lost in your pit stop strategy, and Ferrari absolutely botched it. And Red Bull was able to, I think what Red Bull and Ferrari were kind of playing chicken to see who goes first, and then unfortunately Ferrari they got baited into it, and Red Bull's like, okay, well, we'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, it was quite an interesting race perspective. Again, you have to feel for Charles, because even though he did finish his home race as a positive, he should have won that.
He should have absolutely
won that race.
Keep in mind, the Tifosi fans were trying to make arguments on social media saying that Charles did actually finish a Monaco race back in the day, but it was go-karting. So that was still like saying that, yes, he did finish the race. I don't care what anybody says. So plug into the Tifosi fans, because I see what you try to do there.
No,
go
ahead, Erica.
The one thing I will say is that whenever I'm having a bad day and I feel like I'm a useless human being, I just remember that there's a DRS zone in Monaco to help with overtaking, and I feel a little bit better about myself, because I will never be as useless as that DRS zone.
They were going to be like, they opened the DRS later on in the race, but it was just like, you don't notice it at all.
No, like it's super short and there's not that much to it in the first place compared to a lot of the other tracks we're at. And second, it's still so narrow, you still can't overtake anyone when you're there.
Yeah, just stick your car in the middle of the road and no one's getting past you left or right.
Yeah, which obviously would be the racing line that anyone would take if you're on a little bit of a straight like that and you know that you're trying to prevent a pass. But that's also part of why I think maybe Monaco is not something that they're going to continue with. Like, I don't know if we want to dive into that question now or if we want to wait off, because I have opinions on this. So
before you go to that, I want to talk about Checo, because it was he had a new helmet this weekend to commemorate Pedro Rodriguez, who was a Mexican, driver of Formula One. He with this win, Checo has now passed Pedro Rodriguez as the most successful Mexican driver in Formula One history, which is really awesome to see. He wore a commemorative helmet for Pedro this weekend. And I don't know if anyone saw it though, like during the podium.
He was crying.
This race meant a lot to Checo, because he said if he didn't want to win his home race, he'd want to win here.
Yeah.
And just being, after the week he had last week in Barcelona, and, getting told to be set aside for his teammate, and just having that weigh on him, he was just able to go and race. And, he drove well, let's be real, all weekend. I know he got lucky with the Ferrari pit stop strategy going Bosch, but it still takes, he had a lot of front graining, and it still takes someone really special. He was able to fend off Sainz for 10 minutes there at the end. To win the race. And it's just really incredible to see how far he's come over his career, to be able to now compete in a car where he's only 15 points back of the world championship leader, his teammate. So who knows?
I think it's just a testament to his skill, right? Like we saw that last year on a few occasions. He was really kind of like the tire management king and was really able to pull out all the stops. But I'm definitely happy after last week. I mean, you know how I felt. I felt it was heartbreaking for Red Bull to make that call and do that to Checo. So for him, other than, he had that little bit of a tailspin that kind of ruined everyone's final flying lap during quali, caused a little bit of a pile up there. So I am kind of curious how that would have impacted things, because a few of the drivers were on some pretty quick laps that may have shook up the starting grid. But yeah, I mean, I'm very happy for him. I think he deserved to be on top of the podium after the last few weeks. So
especially since he's got like 3 second place finishes this year alone. So it's finally nice for him to be up there. Also, Lando Norris coming in with the fastest lap.
Honestly, I mean, they said that they were gonna go for it when they put on the tires. He was like, "Do we do it?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure."
So since tonsillitis, he's gotten an 8th place finish, and he's finished four positions ahead of his teammate, and then he finished 6th today.
Yeah,
7 positions ahead of his teammate, and he's not 100%. And when this guy gets 100%, I'm curious if he's going to start pushing for podiums.
that's what he was saying. He was like, "Look, P6 and fastest lap," and I was sick. Just wait. Like, he's ready and he's hungry, and I think he's gonna be putting in the work. And like we've said, like, now that obviously, like, rough start, but like McLaren's clearly figured out the car now. And so I think it'll be exciting to see what happens. We're at Baku next, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
A place
after
that
last,
anything can happen.
excited.
What's that one corner? Is the castle turn where
Yeah.
Charles famously crashed. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see. I think it's gonna be really fun, and again, like, I don't know, Daniel Ricciardo. Just get your shit.
Yeah, I was just about to say. I was like, McLaren hasn't figured out their car. Lando Norris has figured out their car. Yeah. And according to Zach Brown in an interview, Daniel is still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he did say in that interview this week, though, that there are mechanisms in place to not have him be a race driver for McLaren next season. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him, because it's pretty pathetic when your teammate who has tonsillitis and is not 100% is leaving you in the dust.
Yeah. It's not even like small differences. It's very noticeable.
It is ridiculous. And this is a track that he's won at before.
And come close to winning several other times as well. He used to be Mr. I own these streets, Ricardo. And
what happened to him?
Well, I could tell you. Well, he also got screwed over by a pit stop. It was 2017 Monaco, because he won 2018. Thanks. Okay, I don't know. I think he might be washed up. I think you know, when
it breaks my heart to say that, though. Like,
well, also, like, you know, when I talk about when we went to the Miami, and I said, like, which teams are going to be too focused on social media than actual racing.
Oh,
Point taken. Like, look what happened to McLaren that weekend.
Yeah.
It's true. They're very focused on the brand. And I think because they've got, I think part of it, though, is that McLaren kind of aligns with, like, direction in terms of where Formula One is hoping to take the sport with the Americanization, right? Like, you've got Zach Brown, who is American, and I'm sure that he's really pushing for it to become a more dominant sport in his home country and stuff. So they're going to be in on the fanfare and trying to make it as enticing and as exciting, because if you can get all those people to back your team, it's going to help with more sponsorship, more money, kind of put you as one of those real big, like, money making draws and things. So it'll be,
but I'm also going to say that, like, the US love winners, and it's pretty challenging when I think your top, when you have, I think Lando's got 48 points and Daniel's got 11.
Jeez.
Yep.
Like 37 point, like a 37 point difference. And, you know, for a team that wanted to be challenging, like, there is a clear separation in the midfield now with regards to Constructors' Championship, because Mercedes is at 134 points, McLaren at 4th place is 59. And
jeez, I didn't realize it was that big.
So, like, you know, and it's frustrating in a sense that, because Lando has been able to maximize the car when he can, and yet he's got a teammate who, I love Danny Rick, but my God, dude, you have to, you're like, oh, race in Vegas next year, I can't wait. You'll be like, there's no guarantees in this sport. No, you can't guarantee yourself to be in a position next year to race in Vegas. So you really need to pick up your shit. I apologize for swearing, but pick it up, because it's honestly embarrassing.
I totally agree.
Hey guys, it's Ricci, just taking a quick break from the podcast. Hope you guys are enjoying this week's episode. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, on our Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and as well as on Twitch. playing some games lately. Just let me know what I should play, and looking forward to it. Anyways, talk to you guys soon. Yeah, and we already talked about it. We're starting to see some of those drivers feel some of the tensions already within 6 weeks, 6 weeks into the calendar year. And like, we think the summer season, like we could see probably 2 or 3 changes already being announced.
Yeah. Well, some of them are pretty obvious, and I think people have been expecting for a while, so it won't be as shocking. But I don't know. I'm interested to see how this pans out and who will be in which seats. Because I think this is another year where we've got quite a few people whose contracts are up for renewal.
Mm-hmm.
So might be some more shifting or moves. I saw one thing where they were joking. They were like, you know, the meme where someone's like walking an elderly woman and they're like, back in my day, like we used to have this, and someone's like, okay, grandma, time to go home. And it was like Daniel Rick's face like photoshopped over top, and it was like, I used to own the streets in Monaco, and everyone's like, okay, grandpa, time to put you in an alpha.
So speaking about the internet, fan questions, we got a couple of them today. Andrew, do you want to start with the one that you got today? I think it's pretty clear where our thoughts are on this one, but I'll let you take the reign, because I think it's a special somebody who asked for it too.
Yeah, my dad sent me a question today for the podcast. So shout out, Dad. Hope you're doing well. The question was, do you think we're going to be racing in Monaco next season? Because I didn't know this until this weekend. This is the last year under the current contract with Formula One to have a race in Monaco. Mm-hmm. And based on what I've heard from Zach Brown in an interview, saying that they're looking for more commercial agreements that will provide the sponsorship dollars to really boost. So, you know, there are, and I think this has to do a lot with the Americanization of the sport, with bringing another race to Miami, bringing another race to Las Vegas, and the money that's going to be funneled in through those races. It's now, can Monaco provide that type of funding, I guess, to host this race? My take on this is, look, like, yeah, Monaco has become a spectacle to show the cars. The cars are way too big nowadays to really be able to do any form of racing on Sunday. Despite Pierre Gasly being able to do some overtaking today, which was really great to see, but that was it, really. So, and this has become a strategy where the race has been won through pit stop strategy the past few years. So I'm kind of torn on this, because I have said in the past on this podcast that maybe Monaco is one that you get rid of on the calendar, right? Because of how boring it is. But in a sense, it's always fun just to see. It's a great spectacle to see the cars go through the peninsula. Like, it's so unique, right? Like you literally drive through the entire principality. Then that is like the race circuit. But maybe they have to do some configuration changes or something with that circuit to really be able to make it come back, because it is. To me, it's starting to go towards that end where we don't need to have this on the calendar.
Well, if I'm gonna argue as well, because I think it's more not only that, but it's also like a logistical nightmare, because how small Monaco is and how much of an inconvenience it is to their citizens. You just hear some of the stories. I think last year, I don't know if it was like how much it goes into actually creating the F1 track, or like just the mobile homes and everything they had to go in Monaco itself. And like, I think for F1 or something, like sometimes it could be 3 or 4 days or something for setup, but like I think it's like at least a week and a half or something, where like roads are shut down there. It's kind of a nightmare. And especially, well, I think one thing we're going to probably see next year is hopefully more consistency in some of these calendars, because like it doesn't make sense how we go from Saudi Arabia to Australia to Italy to Miami to Spain to Monaco to Azerbaijan to Canada to Great Britain. Like, does someone not really put the checkers or cross the T's on some of these destinations?
I feel like if anyone ever did an environmental impact assessment, everyone would just freak out over.
And the ironic part is that F1 and the FIA are trying to do everything in their power to be as
I
environmentally
know.
friendly as possible.
And that's my thing. It's like I did supply chain and undergrad. I know what this is like. It's a nightmare on like so many different fronts. And even like what was it, preseason testing or the first race or whatever was like, will Haas have a car there? Because it was just stuck in transit. So I don't know. I'm curious if part of it is because they're thinking people would have layovers in between. So it's a chance like if you're coming from the States, then you can stop off at home. You know, some of the support crew and like the pit crew and everything get to like go see their families, spend some time with them for a couple days before they head off. But even still, like, I don't know. I feel like I agree with you. I think there's a better system. And I think you guys both hit the nail on the head talking about Monaco. It would be a loss for sure. I'm curious how many of the tried and true, like lifelong F1 fans they would lose or kind of turn off in removing it because it is such a staple of the sport and something that the drivers really like going to. There's all the fanfare around it, but you know, it'll be interesting to see if there is another contract to continue it, or if maybe, you know, because they've got more street circuits come in like Vegas and stuff like that, this might not be something that they continuously keep on the calendar.
Keep in mind, Senna still holds the record for most wins at Monaco with 6. Still has not been beaten.
And like none of the drivers that are currently here are even close to touching that. I think Lewis is one of the closest, and he's got like 3 or 4.
Just 3.
3, and Alonso and Vettel have 2 each.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I don't know. F1's becoming a problem too, in a sense where there's so many of these street/hybrid street circuits on the calendar now that it's just kind of taking away from the actual racing itself. Because I don't know if you've watched on the F1 YouTube page, they talked about what's it like racing in a street circuit. It is just a mental beatdown.
Well, just look at the track with the paint and everything.
It's just, and I was going through it. I was thinking like there are like, you know, Saudi Arabia is considered a street circuit. Australia is like a hybrid street/park circuit. You know, Miami is technically a hybrid VL to it too. Monaco, Azerbaijan, even Canada's kind of got that hybrid street viewpoint where it's very narrow and the walls are very, very close to each other in that case too. But it's just like there's a lot of these, you know, hybrid street circuits that on the track that it's just kind of like, it's great, but at some point you start to lose flavor in having them on the calendar in that case.
Speaking, I think those are good points. Speaking about races, I know we're just totally joining. I got another one that just came in from our favorite friend, Graydon, who
Hi,
is
Graydon.
a big Graydon said, who do you think other than the top 3 teams, which he's referring to as Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull, sorry,
You lose.
which drivers could win? So he's trying to ask us, who do you think out of the team who can win a race other than the top teams?
Obviously, I'm saying Lando Norris. I think it's time for him to get his first win, and he's shown that he can improve in this car and he can perform in it. And I don't know, he's been skilled enough and done well enough in the last couple seasons that I think he's got the gumption and the guts and can take home the glory.
What about you, Andrew?
Lance Stroll. Just joking. I'm kidding. No, I think Lando Norris for sure. We've been able to kind of tackle that car while he's under the weather. He has a podium finish already this year in Imola. I don't see why it just takes someone to get lucky, right? To win these kind of races. We saw it last year in Imola when Max and Lewis took each other out, and McLaren had like their weekend of weekends, and you know they were able to go 1-2. I think they can win. I think Lando can win that. If I was going to go really off the board, just based on his consistency, I want to say Valtteri Bottas at Alpha, because he's been able to finish in the points every race this year except the one that he retired in Saudi, and he's been like 6th, 8th, 5th, 7th, 6th, and then 9th today. But like
Still in the points.
Yeah, still in the points, still getting good points. He's taking
Literally
that
carrying
car
the
to another
team.
level. Yeah, exactly. Taking that car to another level. I think Joe is kind of getting, I think he's racing a lot better than what his point total suggests.
Yeah.
Got a couple 11th place finishes, a couple of retirements based on the car. But I think, yeah, I would honestly, to me, Lando would be the one favorite to win. And then if I was to pick one off the board, it'd be Bottas.
I would love Bottas to win in an Alpha. That would just be such a feather in his cap for the season, I think.
Yeah, and I think if you are a betting man, like all eyes point to Lando. I do think that will have some magic where there's going to be a situation that both the top drivers collide, or something happens that will obviously favor maybe a McLaren to get up there. But like Lando's obviously proven that he's been able to race really well this season, and I don't doubt that. I'm just looking at the list, and I think, I can't argue with that one. But Bottas would be kind of a nice sweet pick, especially since how great he's driving, literally carrying his team in the constructors right now. Let's just take that in. I think combined, he has 41. The team has 41 points, and Alpine have 40, and I think Joe has only got 1 point, so it's basically Valtteri carrying it.
It's literally Valtteri carrying the team, and then Joe just picking up the scraps. The points.
So I think those are kind of my picks. I think I got another one on Instagram today. Actually, no, this one's from Brett from Toronto. And this is regarding, as everyone knows, Haas did not have a good weekend this weekend. From Mick's crash to Kevin having some issues. It's kind of very expensive, these cars, and we've seen some damage reports already. I remember it cost $1 million when Max Verstappen went into the wall in Great Britain last year. What's going to happen? The question that I got from Brett was, what do you think is going to happen at Haas? Mick keeps destroying his cars, and they don't have the money for this. Because they are a team that, we've kind of talked about this year. They've had some impressive races, but they obviously finished at the bottom of the grid last year. So where are you going to get that additional funding from is going to be a major thing. And especially if you're racking up $1 million costs each year, I think there's some pressure on Mick this year, unfortunately.
I agree with that. I think, especially from a team that is as budget conscious as we know Haas to be, it's a big consideration. And especially when some of these things aren't like, oh, the car gave out on you and so you crashed into a barrier because you couldn't brake going into a turn. Like, some of this has been driver error. Actually, like a good chunk of it has. And I think that's really the big thing. It's one thing if the car is giving out on you and stuff. So because that's the team being like, you know what, we failed you as the driver. But if you're having some of those concerns where you're like, is this guy going to be able to perform, or is he going to absolutely bankrupt us this season? And we've seen that K-Mag is able to get up there and score the points, and Mick has had some pretty good showings, but at a certain point you can't hold out for a good showing when, the norm or something that you're a little more used to seeing is something different, especially if you've got a car that can perform.
Especially in this cost cap era, Haas has yet to bring any upgrades, I think, to their car, which has been able to allow them to take a step back, to be able to kind of keep their budget for when they need to bring upgrades later on in the season to kind of boost into the midfield. But that cost goes reduced whenever you have these big shunts, and Mick's already had 2. We're 7 races. We're not even past May. And he's had 2 absolute brutal shunts, and both have been driver error, right? So Gunther was pretty pissed today, because I think that was an absolutely avoidable accident today on Mick's part. And the new way the cars are designed, the cars are supposed to break apart like that easily, but the problem is it's like he just lost another gearbox, so he's gonna have to take a penalty down the road again. How many millions of euros is this going to cost them to fix again so you can go for the next race. And it's just, he's costing his team early on in the season right now, where they need to kind of remain to be competitive, because they are 8th in the constructors, and they had such a promising start to the season that you think they could finish kind of in the midfield. But yeah, just like Mick got to pick it up, man, because I understand he's the son of like one of the most, probably if not the famous driver, in Formula One history, but that doesn't matter.
No,
It shouldn't. That just because it's his name shouldn't matter. Shouldn't have him a spot in the sport. He has the talent, he can do it, but he needs to be better in this case in point, because he really is costing his team.
Yeah, and I wonder how Michael was able to handle some of this pressure when he was the driver too. Because the German media is and especially the Italian media, if you drive for Ferrari, not saying that Mick is driving for Ferrari, but they're pretty tough. It's like just kind of like the Canada media here for hockey. It's like when Team Canada plays, it's gold medal or bust.
mm-hmm.
We don't settle for second. We don't settle for third. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting how the next couple of weeks go, and whether is there a chance that he gets, because I don't see him going to Ferrari anytime soon. So, and especially how he's driving right now does not really give him the opportunity to. So hopefully he can get a point this season. We're obviously praying for him too, and hope that's the best. But do we have any more questions? I think that was it for this week. No?
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, make sure to keep sending us your questions. We really appreciate it. I think this week it's just gonna have to be. We're quite tired celebrating 2 birthdays in 1 month. 1 is a lot, but 2 is pretty big. So, before we kind of end off this week, any kind of last thoughts of the Monaco Grand Prix this week, guys?
I'm curious if they don't get a deal done, what happens to the race in terms of going future, if it's just a 1-year thing, or was this the last actual Monaco Grand Prix we'll ever have in this sport?
Anything from you, Erica?
I hope it's not the last Monaco Grand Prix, but I think that in order for it to continue, like you said, they need to update the track a bit, maybe change what else is going on. I don't know if you guys saw, I wanted to mention this earlier, very funny. Someone for the last lap, just this guy's hand came out with a 1. Just
the most technologically advanced sport in the entire world, and yet the final lap indicator was the guy in the crow's nest just pointing out a 1.
And also when they had the blue flag, it was not, I mean, I think we're all used to just seeing the blue light flashing at a lot of the circuits now, and it was literally like some man with a blue flag just furiously waving at the side of the track. So some improvements to be made. Hope it's not the last one. Excited for Baku.
Yeah,
been around since 1950, from the first iteration of F1. So
Graham Hill had a wicked stash back then. I'm just pulling up the website. Just have to make that fact. But what we didn't talk about this, we'll talk about it maybe next week on our preview. But to see how the FIA responds to some of the criticism with Red Bull's alleged crossover from the pit lanes, but we'll talk about that next week. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's segment of the F1 podcast, where we talked about the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. I am your host, Ricci, with my amazing co-hosts, Andrew and Erica. Sorry, we're a little tired, as you can tell. Make sure to follow us on our social medias, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I always have to double check. I think I got all of them. And leave us your comments in the section. Also, get Andrew to Montreal. That is still trending. We are going to continue it. We need him in Montreal. We need the pod all there. So please,
The squad.
somebody offer up couches, because Airbnbs went up 200%. So,
Oh my goodness.
on that note, Andrew, please sign us off and please come to Montreal.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to season 2, episode 10 of our podcast. Please don't forget to like our podcast on Ricci's YouTube, Johnny's YouTube page, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I promise you, we always start our podcast on time, unlike the FIA, who can't figure out.
Choo!
Pow.
Thank everybody. See you next week.